Welcome to our video lesson on using ratios in tables and graphs. So using ratios to make tables or using ratios to make graphs. We're going to be looking at water usage in this video, and all of my information came from the water usage calculator that was the references at the bottom so that you can look it up if you'd like to. I rounded the numbers to make them a little bit nicer for us to use, but they're all accurate and true. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is we're given a question here. It says a shower uses 24 liters of water every 3 minutes. And what we have to do, using this information, we need to complete this table. In order to do that, we're going to follow these steps. To make a table, first you need to write a unit rate. Remember that unit means it has a 1 in it. So we're going to try and figure out what 1 of something is to use that ratio for the rest. Then you use the unit rate to make your table. So we're given the information that a shower uses 24 liters of water every 3 minutes. We need to make a unit rate. So let's start by saying 24 liters every 3 minutes. Okay, we need to make this into a unit rate. What am I going to turn into 1? Am I going to turn liters into 1, or am I going to turn minutes into 1? Hopefully you're thinking minutes, because it doesn't make sense how many minutes does it take to use 1 liter. We want how many liters to be used in 1 minute. So I'm going to go from 3 minutes down to 1 minute. To go from 3 to 1 in an equivalent ratio, we're going to divide by 3. To make our equivalent rate over here, we're going to do the same thing to the numerator. We're going to divide by 3. So 24 divided by 3 gives me 8. And I have 8 liters in 1 minute. That is my unit rate. So every time we're in the shower for 1 minute, the average shower uses 8 liters of water. Okay, in our table, we have time here, and then we have water. We need to look at, for every amount of time in minutes, how much water is used. So here we have, in 3 minutes, we use 24 liters of water. And here it says 3 minutes. So we can already put our 24 in here, and we got that from the question. But now we need to figure out for the other blanks, we need to fill them in. We can use our unit rate that we just calculated to make that easier on ourselves. We could use the first rate we were given, 24 liters per 3 minutes, but we would have to use decimals and our numbers would get a little messy. This way we have a nice unit rate to work with. So I have 8 liters in 1 minute. And the first one is 2 minutes. So how much water is used in 2 minutes? To go from 1 minute to 2 minutes, I multiply by 2. I'm going to do the same thing with my numerator. 8 multiplied by 2 gives me 16 liters. So that means in here, I would write 16 liters. When you're using these tables, be careful to look and see what the different numbers are. You can't just always increase by the same amount. You really have to look at the number and make sure that you found that unit rate. So the next one is 3 5/10. Now it's not just 3 even number, it's 3 5/10 of a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my 8 liters in 1 minute again, but this time instead of going to 2 minutes, I'm going to 3 5/10 of a minute. To go from 1 to 3 5/10, I multiply by 3 5/10. So I'm going to do the same thing with my numerator. 3 5/10 times 8. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 4 is 28. Now I have 1 decimal in my factors, so I need 1 decimal place in my answer. So my answer would be 28 liters. So in 3.5 minutes in the shower, we use 28 liters of water. It's a lot of water. The next one, instead of being a time, I need to figure out, I know how much water was used, and I need to figure out how long they were in the shower. So I'm going to start with my unit rate again. 8 liters in 1 minute. And this time, instead of writing it down here in the denominator, I'm going to write 32 liters along the top. What do I do to 8 to make it into 32? Well, 8 times 4 gives me 32. So I'm going to do the same thing with my denominator, 1 times 4. 1 times 4 is 4 minutes. So that means that in 4 minutes, 32 liters of water is used. So that 4 goes up here. For the last one, see if you can do it on your own. Press pause, give it a try, and then when you're done, click play and see what the correct answer is. Hopefully, for this last one, you found out that in only 6.5 minutes of time in the shower, you use 52 liters of water. That's a lot of water. And if you think of how long you shower every day, how much water you're using, especially right now when we're having problems with water in Colombia, hopefully this makes you think about how long you should be showering. Now we're going to take our information and we're going to put it into a graph. To make a graph, first you need to find your ordered pairs, and then you need to graph them. Ordered pairs are like our points that we've used before when we were putting them on the coordinate plane. Now, here's in this thought bubble at the bottom. When we're working with equivalent ratios, they will always give us a straight line. So you need to make sure that the information you've made gives you a nice straight line on your graph, otherwise you've made a mistake. Here's our table up top here, the one that we just made, and here's our graph. Our first thing we need to do is figure out our axes. We are going to put time on our x-axis and water use on our y-axis. I'm going to draw my axes lines and put the labels on. You should do the same thing on yours. Now that I have my axes set up, I need to figure out what my scale is going to be. What am I going to increase by along each axis? Okay, time is along my x-axis, and in my graph, my minimum time is 2, and my maximum time is 6 5/10. So I'm thinking we could probably go by 1. So that means that 0 would be right here, 1 would be here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we do have a whole bunch of extra space, but unfortunately we can't divide it up any other way in order for it to work out nicely. Notice how I wrote the numbers on the line, not in the spaces. When you're numbering for your graph, you need to make sure you put them on the line. Okay, water used. We need to start, we have our lowest number is 16 and our highest number is 52. So we have about 10 or 11 spaces along the side, so I think we should go by 5s. We start with 0, we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and then up here we'll have 55. Okay, now that we've got our graph made, we need to plot our points. So for 2 minutes of time, we use 16 liters of water. If you look in our table, we could have that information right here. So that's going to be our first point. Find where 2 minutes is along your graph, which is right here. And then I need to find 16 liters. So 15 is along the side here, and 16 will be just above that. So I'm going to put my point just above the 16 there. My dots are really big because I can't actually make them any smaller. Oh, I can't. So this will work out nicely. Okay, our next point is 3 and 24. So 3 is here, and 24 would be just under our 25, so our point's about right there. Then our next one is 3 and 5/10, so 3 1/2, which would be right here, and 28. So that would be about right here on my graph. Then I have 32 and 4, so 4 is down here, and 32 would be about right there. And our last one is 6 and 5/10 and 52. 6 and 5/10 and 52, so it would be about right here. Now, remember what the warning said when we were looking at the steps for making a graph? It told us that our points, if they're equivalent ratios or rates, they should make a straight line. So let's check and see if this is a straight line. You can see that I can make a straight line out of these points, so that means that I've done it correctly. The only thing I'm missing from my graph now is the title. What title should we put on this graph? we need it to be something about showering and the amount of water used in the shower. So, amount of water used in the shower. That's all for this example. We're going to do another example together. This time it's looking at flushing the toilet and how much water is used when you flush the toilet. Now I think some of you are actually going to be surprised by how much it is. So it tells us off the bat that flushing a toilet 5 times uses 70 liters of water. In our table, I can see that 5 is one of my spots, one of my coordinates. So I'm going to write 70 right away because I can already fill that in. Now, I need to find my unit rate for this information. So if I have 5 flushes, and that's 70 liters, I need to figure out how many, make that look a little better, how many liters are in one flush. So my next rate would be 1 flush. Okay, if I go from 5 down to 1, I'm going to divide by 5. So I would do the same thing with my denominator down here, 70 divided by 5. Well, 70 divided by 5, 5 goes into 7 1 times, and 1 times 5 is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2, and I bring down that 0. 5 goes into 20 4 times, and 4 times 5 is 20. 20 minus 20 gives me 0. So that means every time you flush the toilet, it uses 14 liters of water. That's a lot of water. When I first discovered that, I was really surprised. So this is my unit rate. Now I need to use it to fill in the rest of my table. On your guided note, I gave you different numbers in here. Can you please change those numbers to be these numbers here? Okay, I want you to try to do this on your own. After you finish filling in your whole table, using this unit rate, 1 flush for 14 liters, click play, and then we'll talk about your graph. Now that you've filled in your table, you should be all completely filled in. It should look like this. 3 flushes uses 45 liters of water. In 120 minutes, sorry, not 120 minutes, 120 liters of water would be used in 8 flushes. 135 liters of water would be used in 9 flushes, and if you flush the toilet 11 times, it uses 165 liters of water. Now you need to make your table. For your table, for your axes, the x and the y, you're going to put the number of flushes along your x-axis and the amount of water used along your y-axis. Try and set up the scales yourself if you can. Now that I have my axes set up, I need to figure out my scales. So along my x-axis, I need to go from 3 all the way up to 11. I'm going to use the same scale as I did the first time, where you have 1 along each line. For my y-axis, I need to go from 45 up to 165. That's a lot. So I'm going to go up by 15. Now that I have my axes, I just need to plot my points. So for every 3 flushes, we use 45 liters of water. So 3 is down here on my graph, and I'm going to put a point where 3 and 45 meet, so right here. There we go. Then, for every 5 flushes, we use 70 liters. So 5 is here, and I go up to where 70 would be. So we have 75, so I know it would be just under 75, so about right there. Then we have 8 flushes, and 8 would be 120, so I'm going to go 8 down here to 120. Then we have 9 to 135. Oh, that's not quite right. There we go. And 11 to 165. Now remember, it should be in a straight line, and that looks like it is in a straight line. So take your ruler, and you're going to draw a straight line through it. Now it's really hard for me to do on here, so it's not going to go through quite perfectly. It's actually okay. But that's what your straight line should look like. The last thing we need is a title for our graph. Our title is the amount of water used when flushing the toilet. Okay, I hope this helps you see how to use tables and graphs to make use ratios and rates, and I hope you've learned something about how much water we use when we flush the toilet and when we are showering. That's all for now. I'll talk to you later.